Okay, everybody. So this is the week 7 lecture 2. So scrolling down through here, you should see the information on the course website about the exam. So you should know that you have an exam that's available now. You should know that the real exam opens Friday. For the real exam, you get 2 tries on it. It's a multiple choice Canvas exam and a time limit of 180 minutes. That's per attempt. Um, and you also have to make a discussion board post about the practice exam. The practice exam and the practice discussion board post are both required. They're worth points. You need to do them. Okay. Now, something that I've mentioned last time, but I still want to mention again, is that so these assignments were mistakenly available previously in one of my classes. And so if you already took it and got a bad score, I mean, took it before this week and got a bad score, then you can email me and I can open up the assignment again so you can make another attempt or 2 attempts. But I won't do it unless you let me know that you need me to. Okay. So with that said, we scroll down here and we see what we have for this week. There's no new zyBooks, or sorry, there's no new PowerPoint or PDF to look at today. And that's because what we did last time, where we learned about the logical operators, was really everything we need for this week. Okay, so let's jump in and look at material basically. So we're going to go to the week 7 and week 7 reading or week 7 homework, doesn't really matter which. And we'll head a little bit further in. So I think we did last time a couple sections of this, but we didn't do all of it. So I'm going to go and maybe hit a couple of assignments. Um, well, a couple of examples. So we'll go to 7.2 first. I think we did some of this last time, but I'll do one more exercise today. So we'll scroll down here. What we need to remember is we need to know that this means and the whole thing will be evaluating to true only when both of the operands are true. So when you say A and B, you mean A and B both need to be true. And when you say A or B, then that means we just need at least one of them to be true. It could be one of them true, it could be both of them true, but at least one. And if you put an exclamation point before something, it means not. So not false would be true and not true would be false, for example. All right, let's scroll down and look at some programming, hopefully we can find. And looking at this, I see that I did part 1 and part 3. Let's do a part 2. Hit start, jump to part 2, and let's look at it. So this is going to be hopefully trying to figure out how to use those operators, which again, we covered in the previous lecture. So let's see. Mid-sized towns have a population between 850 and 4,500. Now it says write an if statement. Okay, I can do that. If, there's my if statement. Not a mid-sized town if input size input is not in this range. Um, so I think they want us to use the not operator. Uh, we don't have to, of course, but I'll try. So we have this size input that must be the size of the town, right? Now, to be inside of this range, 850 to 4,500, that would mean that, I'll use parentheses here, the size input should be greater than or equal to 850, right? To be in this range. And the size input should be less than or equal to 4,500 to be in this range. Now, what we could do with this right here, just the way it is, I'll put it in my curly braces, is if you are meeting this requirement, then you are a mid-sized town, right? So we could just put mid-sized town in here, like output that, and we would be correct. But the way that they've worded this, it kind of suggests that, like, when they say otherwise, that usually means else. And so they kind of want this to be in the else block, not in the if block. And so just to do this the way that it kind of suggests we do it, um, it says write an if statement that outputs not a mid-sized town, and it says if the size input is not in this range. So right now, this is inside the range. To make it not in this range, we would just have to add an exclamation point before it. So that would be not in the range. Uh, Again, we could have just not done it this way, but well, we could also do it this way. So we are. So we're going to print out what it says, which is not a mid-sized town. And then close the curly braces and then open the else block, close it. And in there, we're also going to print something, which is mid-sized town. So I just copy paste it to avoid typing. And hopefully this is correct. And it is, right? So let's see what else we have in here. Well, let's look at number 4. So this one says if the integer year input is in the inclusive range. So we don't have to think too hard about this. We can type it just the way it is, even though there are other ways. So if you wanted this year input variable to be in each of these 3 ranges, each one is going to have 2 conditions, right? A less than and a greater than. So we could have that the year input, I don't really need parentheses. We could have that the year input is greater than or equal to 501, right? For the top one. And the year input could be less than or equal to 600. And that would be my top interval, right? And so in there, what do I need to print? I need to print the 6th century. So we just do a system dot out dot print line 6th century. Close that. Right. Now the others are going to be the exact same, or the other 2 that we see here. There isn't otherwise afterwards, but the other 2 are going to be the same. But we would probably put them in an else if. So I'll do else, and kind of one shortcut I can do is I can type the else here, copy my if statement, and paste it right there, and I'll get else if. Now, for the second one, though, it's supposed to be 601 to 700. So I have to change the numbers to 601 and 700. And also, that's the 7th century. Then I can copy that whole thing again. And the next one is 701 to 800 and the 8th century. So change the numbers 701, 800, 8th century. And we're not quite done because it says otherwise, and otherwise means else. And what can we put in the otherwise block? Records not available for this input. So I'll just copy that. System dot out dot println records not available for this input. And it's as easy as that. Now, we wrote more stuff in these conditions than strictly needs to be there. But the way we wrote it was just literally what it said up here. And that's going to be fine. Okay. So we might have also done something from 7.3, which again, we're still looking at ranges. It's the same sort of thing. All right, so let's jump down here. We got a couple activities. Let's do one of these, I guess. We haven't done one yet. Let's jump to number 4, actually. Why not? So in order to do this right, we're going to have to know how the and works. We have to know how the not works. And that's about it. Also, we need to be careful and pay attention to, like, this is an if statement here that I've highlighted, and under it, there's another if statement here. But notice it's not else if, which means that these 2 if statements are completely separate. That means the first one has nothing to do with the second one. We have to run them both completely independently here. Okay, so let's do it. So we have integer x to start with, x equals 5, and then we have to work out these conditions. So x equals 5. So x less than 6, that's true, right? So this is true. And then over here on this side, we have, well, x is 5. So x less than or equal to 2, 5 less than or equal to 2 is false, but there's a not in front of it. So not false is true. So this first one evaluates to true, and the second one, once you include the not, also evaluates to true. So this is true and true. So the whole thing is true. And if the whole thing is true, then we are going to print this A. So we go over here, type A, and then hit enter. Then we get to the second if statement. Remember, in this case, the second if statement is completely independent of the first one. So we have to check this one too. X equals 5 still. And it says if x is greater than 6, it is not, right? X is 5. 5 is not greater than 6. So this side is false. As soon as this is false, we don't even need to go any further here because in order for the entire condition to evaluate to true, you would have to have both conditions on either side of the and would have to be true. And they're not, right? Because the one we just checked is false. So that means this if statement here is not going to run and produce any output. And then we look at the last line, which is going to output C. That's not an if statement, which means it's just going to output C always. And there we go. Okay, so you need to carefully work those out. If you really get stuck, like you could always just copy what's inside there, right? And I don't have Eclipse open, I see. Just open it right now. So I just have whatever I was working on last open. So I can just delete the inside of this main method, put in some code, and run it. And you can get the output that way too. All right. So let's go down to the next exercise, which is 7.3. Again, I can see that I did 1 and 3, but I didn't do 2 and 4. Let's look at number 2, see if it makes sense. Yeah, we can do this one. So we got, what do we got? We have a volume in gallons. So somebody is typing in a number. And then we need to do something with that. And it says what? This. If the volume is smaller than 35.5 or bigger than 75.5. Okay, so we just type what we see. If the volume, ooh, that's from the previous problem. If the volume in gallons, we fix this up a little bit. If the volume in gallons is smaller than 35.5, so that is less than 35.5, 35.5, and then it says or, so we type or, and then we have bigger than 75.5. Remember, you have to put your variable in again, and greater than 75.5. Then what do we do? In this case, we are supposed to be outputting reject. So go in here, system.out.println reject. Cool. What is next? Then we have otherwise. Otherwise means else. And then we output admit. So I'll just copy my previous print line, change that to say admit. And I have my opening curly brace here, but I didn't make a closing one yet. So I will put the closing curly brace to close the else statement. And there we go. We got it. All right. Going to keep going here. And I think this is teaching us else if. So we'll go down here. I haven't done any of these. So let's do 7.4.2. So we'll do 7.4.2, and we'll just do the first one first, and let's see what we have. So I can see that there is an integer called time, and we're reading in that from the user, and we're going to be doing something with it. So it says, so be careful, right? So they're teaching you how to do like else ifs in this section. But they're also like sometimes they're typing individual if statements that are separate. And this problem specifically says write multiple if statements. So that's what we're going to be doing because that's what it says. Okay. So it says if, all right, if what? Time greater than 15, easy, oops. Time greater than 15. And then it says output, uh, I can finish at least a third of my homework. Okay, so it takes 15 minutes to do 1/3 of your homework, it says. Okay, but then it says, again, multiple if statements. So we're not using an else if here. We're doing a completely separate if statement. And if the time is what? It says greater than or equal to 44, greater equal 44. Open that up. Okay, we're outputting something similar, so I'm going to copy, paste it, but then I need to copy, paste the inside to change it. Make sure to close that if statement. Now we have a third if statement, if time less than or equal to 4. If time less than equal 4, what do we do? I don't have time to do my homework. So we will system.out.println. I don't have time to do my homework. And we close it. So that's what it says. So we wrote multiple if statements because that was the requirement for this particular exercise. Probably the next one will not be like that. And we got it, of course. Skip to the next one. Let's see. So again, this is good. We're trying to follow the requirements here. So integers num.1 and num.2 are read from input. There they are. Write one if statement and one if else statement. Okay. And so this first line, that's the one that's for the if statement. The second one is for the if else statement. And I can tell that because there's if, and then the next thing is otherwise, right? So the last two bullet points here are telling me about an if else. So we'll do whatever it says. So if num.1 greater than 0. So if num.1 greater 0, what do we do? Output num.1 is positive. That is easy enough. System.out.println num.1 is positive. Cool. Then we write another if statement. So we write a completely new if statement. And this says if num.2 is greater than 45. So num.2 greater 45. What do we do? Then it says assign num.2 with 6. So you have to say num.2 equals 6, right? That's assigning it. And then after that, we have otherwise, and otherwise means else. So we continue on this if else statement with else, and it says otherwise output num.2 is less than or equal to 45. So system.out.println num.2 is less than or equal to 45, and we can close that. Okay, now I'm going to run this. It should run. Going to pause the recording right here. And I'll be back in a second. Hopefully there will not be a pause for you, but I just have to leave the computer for 1 second here. Okay, I am back now. So I think we just did this one and we hit check and it looks like we finished it. So good. Um, so the last thing we have in here is common branching errors. And yeah, so here's one error that it actually involves something that I haven't even mentioned yet. And so if you take a look at this if else statement, the way that it's indented implies that we have if the num sales is less than 20, that we have sales bonus equals 0. And then we have an else, and indented inside that, we have total bonus equals total bonus plus 1, and sales bonus equals 20. Um, but Java doesn't actually care about indentation in terms of compiling the code. And what it cares about is curly braces. So you'll notice that there are no curly braces here. And so what happens when you write an if statement is if you only have a single line in your if statement, like this one, technically you can just get rid of these curly braces and it'll still run. And that's going to be the same thing true for the other one here. Um, Without the curly braces, this code still runs and produces the same output. The problem is, what if you want to have an extra line of code in here where you say, system.out println, uh, hello, right? If you want more than one line inside of the if statement, this will not work. What you'd have to do is you would have to have curly braces opening and closing curly braces around that code block. Otherwise, it would not be included in the if statement. And so the indentation doesn't matter. It's the curly braces that need to be there. And this one right here, they've indented it to suggest that both of these two lines down here under the else should be inside the else, but there were no curly braces around it. So that's not what happens. So always use curly braces, right? Always like this, curly brace, to avoid errors. Um, yeah. So not too much to say about that. We can do this challenge exercise, I guess, if else statement error. So they've got this one right here, and they want it to be retyped. So I copy it, and I come down here, and I just paste all of that code, and it indented it improperly. So I will indent it the way it was up here. This is the way it was indented. And this is the exact error that we were just talking about where um, there's no curly braces. So we should always use curly braces on these. So like even this first one, the first if statement has only one line in it. So technically it doesn't need these curly braces that I'm typing now, but we should still have them for consistency. So I put those curly braces in here, and the else, from the indentation, we can see that both of these two lines should be in the else. So we'll open the curly brace there, and after the user num equals 1, we will close it like that. And then when we run this, it's just going to double check that we actually get the appropriate output. So it knows where the curly braces were supposed to be, and we get the correct thing there. Another mistake that people make is forgetting that when you want to check if two things are equal, you have to have two equal signs. So num items equals 3. This is true if num items is 3. It's false otherwise. So equals is a comparison, right? Down here where it says num items equals 10, that's not a comparison. Num items equals 10 just makes num items equal to 10. So that's not a true false. And so that's a mistake. Okay. And Java will catch that error. Not every programming language will. but Java will catch this error. So it'll tell you that, you should have had equals equals there. All right. And then there's another challenge activity, and it's just exactly what we just talked about. So there's an if statement, and it says if user num equals 2, that's an error. So it needs to be equals equals 2. That's all. And there we go. All right. And that's it. Now, that's it for this material for this week. However, on the practice test, I have one question that we haven't talked about yet. And that's because pretty much because I wrote the practice test like a year ago. But I'll show you what it's about. We're looking at some code that's not for us. Um, let's look here. So there's a common task in programming or a common type of if statement. So this is a type of if statement that you'll see often, right? A common type of if statement will assign a variable, a variable. I'm just gonna indent properly here, sorry. One of two different values depending on some condition, right? What does that look like? So this is just a common kind of pattern here. So I'm just going to say int x equals 5, just making a number here. And let's just say int y. Okay. So a common type of if statement might look like this. If, let's say x less than 10. So we're doing some sort of comparison. And then what are we doing? I'm going to say y equals negative 99. Doesn't matter. I just need a value there. Okay. And then else, more curly braces, y equals, I don't know, 50. Okay. So do you see what's happening here? We're making this comparison here. And depending on whether x is less than 10, either y is going to be negative 99 or y is going to be 50. Okay. And if you look at how many lines it took me to type, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines, right? This takes 6 lines of code. Well, people don't like that. So they want a more concise way. So in alternative to this kind of if statement, so you can't use it unless it's this type, is what we call is called a ternary operator. Ternary operator or ternary statements. It can do the same thing in one line. So it can do the exact same thing in a single line of code. So that's why people like them. The syntax is a bit weird. So the syntax is like this. So I'll just type one. Or I'll type it in general, and then we'll talk about it. So how do you type one of these? So what you do is you have your variable that you want equal to something. So like in this case, this is y, but I'll just say variable equals. And then after you put the equals, then there's a condition, right, that needs to be checked. So this is where you put the condition. So you put condition here, and that's where, that's going to have all of these is going to be filled in with what it actually is. After you do the condition, you type a question mark. We have never used a question mark in Java before, but you use a question mark in a ternary operator, ternary statement. So we have a question mark, and then the two possibilities for the variable. One of the possibilities was negative 99, right? And the other one is 50. Well, what you do with the negative 99 and the 50 is this is where they go. I'm going to just say value 1, and then you do a colon, and then you put value 2, whatever that is. So what we did here was not, with our variables plugged in. This was just the general form of it. So if I wanted to do the exact equivalent of this code, what it would look like is you would say y equals, right? So this is y equals negative 99, y equals 50. Those are what we want to assign. Then you put the condition. So the condition here is x less than 10. So you go x less than 10. Then you have a question mark. So you do question mark. Then you have the first value, that's the true value. So, right, if x is less than 10, we have negative 99 first. So that's what would go here, negative 99. Then you do a colon, and then you have the second value. And in this case, the second value is 50. 50, right? So this is the exact same as this code up here, but this is faster to type. It's faster to type only if only if you know it. But people do know it in general. If you program in C, C++, Java, C Sharp, other C-like languages, they're going to have this ternary operator available to you. And so people will remember it and they will use it. And so the way you would do this is you would look at it and you would say x less than 10. If x is less than 10, the y will be negative 99. Otherwise, y will be 50. So this first value here after the question mark, that's what we're going to make y equal to if the condition is true. And the second value is what y will be equal to if the condition is false. All right. And those are called ternary statements. They're going to teach you them in some section in zyBooks. I just haven't seen it yet, even though I accidentally put one in the practice test. Having said that, let's jump over here. We'll even go into the practice test, and we'll find that ternary operator and do that problem. So I'm scrolling down till I see it. I know there's only one in here, so we'll look for it. Here it is. So this one, I guess question 14 for me is the ternary operator. And it says, what is the ending value of y if x is 50, right? So x is 50, we need to remember that. And so you come down here and it says x less than 21. So looking at this code, if x is less than 21, y will be 100. If x is not less than 21, if this condition is false, then y will be equal to x. You can have variables here. So we look at it and we say, well, is this condition true or false? Right? And x is 50. So 50 less than 21, that's false. So this is going to be y equals x. What's x? X is 50. So the correct answer here is 50 if we read this ternary statement. Okay. And so I didn't really mean to put one of these in here, but I did. So I might as well tell you what the answer is. And that's how they work. Okay. So we will see those later on somewhere in a later section, but I think for now that's okay. So this description that we just did, I think that's enough. Okay. Maybe maybe I'll find one more. We don't need any more ternary statements for this code here, but I'm just looking for an if statement. Oh, I don't really see one that's the same type. I was going to convert an if statement to a ternary statement, but I don't see one in the practice test. Well, all right then. So I guess that's going to be it. So please take your practice test by Monday. Do your discussion board post on Monday, by Monday. And the real exam is due by Wednesday but it's not going to be open until tomorrow. It's not going to be open until Friday. Okay. So that's it for now, and I will talk to you later.